Enlightenment has many faces. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. A Bodhisattva is an enlightened being who vows to remain in the world to help all other creatures. Each image of a Buddha or Bodhisattva represents one or more qualities of an enlightened mind. If we visualize or pay respect to an image, we are helped to develop the quality represented by it. Buddhist images are aids to spiritual development, not gods to be worshipped. Enlightenment has many faces. The teachings that Buddha encapsulated in his Four Noble Truths and Noble Eightfold Path were straightforward and rational. To follow them required mental training and analysis of experience, but did not entail metaphysical speculation, thinking about what does or does not exist, religious ritual, or, at least for the first few centuries, any use of images. However, a modern-day visitor to a Mahayana Buddhist temple in China or Tibet would see many elaborate images and forms of devotional worship. Buddha figures, of different colors, male and female, some fearsome, others in calm meditation, appear to be the objects of devotion in a way that, to the external observer, appears not unlike devotion to the gods and goddesses of other religions. Since Buddhism still often claims to be rational, how did this imaginative transformation come about, and how is it justified? The Bodhisattva Path. Given the general Indian belief in reincarnation, it was not long before people started to speculate about Buddha's previous lives, and the actions and characteristics he must have displayed in those lives to move toward nirvana. These musings led to the compilation of Jataka tales or birth stories, involving characters, sometimes human and sometimes animal, that depicted the Buddhist qualities of love, compassion, and wisdom deemed necessary for progress toward enlightenment. In turn, these stories led to the idea of the Bodhisattva, a being who is capable of enlightenment, or of Buddhahood, but who chooses to remain in the world, continuing to be reborn, in order to benefit all other beings. This idea brought about a remarkable change in the overall view of the Buddhist path. Instead of striving to become an arhat, or worthy one, the term used for those of Buddha's followers who have gained enlightenment, it was now possible for Buddhists to dedicate themselves to the more exalted path of becoming, in effect, apprentice Buddhas, Bodhisattvas who engage with the world out of universal compassion. The Great Vehicle. Those who followed this new ideal called it Mahayana, or Great Vehicle, in contrast to the earlier tradition, which they described as Hinayana, Small Vehicle, and regarded as too narrow in scope. Practitioners of Mahayana believe that it represents a deeper teaching, which was implicit in the original Buddhist Dhamma. Its scriptures, notably the Lotus Sutra, present an image of Buddha preaching to beings in a vast universe made up of many world systems, of which this present world is a very small part. Followers of Mahayana argue that the earlier teaching was a necessarily limited version, and that their own was kept hidden for many centuries, awaiting the right conditions to allow it to be preached. Mahayana Buddhism, although it developed in India, spread north and was established in China and then in Tibet. The earlier tradition still exists as Theravada, tradition of the elders, Buddhism. It is found today mostly in Thailand, Sri Lanka, and Southeast Asia. Two Bodhisattvas. The earlier tradition, now known as Theravada, recognizes only two Bodhisattvas, the incarnation of the historical figure of Buddha, who is also known as Sakyamuni Buddha or Gautama Buddha, and Maitreya, a Bodhisattva who will arrive in the future to preach the truth of the Dhamma. However, in Mahayana Buddhism, lay people, as well as the monastic community, are encouraged to reach nirvana and thereafter to become bodhisattvas. Once the possibility of a vast number of bodhisattvas was accepted, each dedicated to the task of universal enlightenment, the floodgates of Buddhist iconography were opened, because these beings could then be imaginatively depicted in order to provide inspiration to others. Symbolism and images. Each bodhisattva vows to become a Buddha, enlightened being, and to lead others toward enlightenment. To do this, they must cultivate 6 perfections: generosity, morality, patience, energy, meditation, and wisdom. These qualities are shown in individual bodhisattva images. For example, The quality of wisdom is depicted through the image of Manjushri, a young man holding a lotus, representing the enlightened mind, and brandishing a flaming sword, representing the wisdom with which he cuts through the veil of ignorance. The most widely venerated of images is that of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. His name is a Sanskrit word meaning the Lord who looks down. He looks upon earthly beings as a good father would upon his children, offering them assistance and trying to liberate them from their faults and suffering through his unwavering compassion. Known to Tibetans as Chenresig, Avalokiteshvara takes on a female form as Kuan-Yin in China, and Kannon in Japan. Avalokiteshvara is most commonly depicted as having 4 arms, 2 are crossed over his heart, a third holds a lotus flower, and a fourth holds a rosary. The crossed arms symbolize the Bodhisattva's compassionate outpouring from his heart to earthly beings. The lotus flower represents enlightenment and pure wisdom, while the rosary symbolizes his desire to liberate earthly beings from their endless cyclical existence. The 14th Dalai Lama is traditionally thought of as an incarnation of this Bodhisattva of compassion. Not all Mahayana images are elaborate in appearance. Each of the dhyana or meditation Buddhas such as Buddha Amitabha, for example, are depicted sitting cross-legged, wearing a very plain robe, their eyes closed in meditation. However elaborate or not these images may be, and however far removed they may appear to be from the straightforward teaching of the historical Buddha, they are all taken to represent aspects of enlightenment. They are not gods to be worshipped, although it may be hard to remember this when observing Buddhists paying tribute to them in temples and shrines. Focuses for meditation. Images of bodhisattvas and Buddhas are regarded as aids to spiritual progress. In meditation, a person may become adept at visualizing his or her chosen image, being able to construct it imaginatively at will. So, the practitioner of meditation has an ongoing relationship with a particular image. It is often selected for that purpose, on the advice of a teacher, in order to address a particular quality, represented by the image of a bodhisattva or Buddha, that the individual needs or wants to develop. The benefit of such a practice is generally only apparent over a period of time. It is not seen as an automatic process, but one that requires sustained personal attention to the qualities and ideals that the image represents. The impermanent mandala. The mandala is another Buddhist image created for the purpose of spiritual development, whether used for meditation or instruction. A mandala is a geometric pattern in which various shapes, letters, and images of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are intricately interwoven in a complex image. The patterns are carefully created out of colored sand, displayed at festivals, and then destroyed. Their destruction is important because it reinforces the idea that everything is temporary. To attempt to retain the images would encourage clinging and craving, which are counter to Buddhist teachings since they lead to frustration and suffering. It is only through letting go, embracing detachment, that the journey to enlightenment can begin. Emptiness and Buddhas. The Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna argued that everything is empty of inherent existence. By this he meant that nothing in the world, including all living beings, has a self or, therefore, an underlying essence, or inherent existence. He maintained that this idea was implied by Buddha's original teaching about the concept of interconnectedness, which sees earthly items and beings as having no essence, or own being, because they are all dependent on the prior existence of something else. Given that we ourselves have no independent, underlying essence, the aim of meditation is to see beyond our senses and the ideas we have gained from them, to look directly upon ultimate truth. Given that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas may be conjured up in meditation, this suggests that they are neither substantial, in other words, they do not have a physical embodiment, nor located somewhere else in the universe. Each of the images conjured up is not a representation of a person, but part of the ultimate truth about the person who sits in meditation. The vast array of Buddha and Bodhisattva images are merely temporary aids to assist a person in recognizing that every individual is a potential Buddha. Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna is considered the most important Buddhist philosopher after Buddha himself. He was born in the 2nd century to a Brahmin, priestly, family, probably in southern India. An oracle predicted his early death at the age of 8, so when he was 7, his parents sent him to a monastery to study under the great Buddhist teacher Saraha. It is said that he avoided death by reciting a mantra without interruption on the eve and dawn of his 8th birthday. He then took monastic vows. Nagarjuna is best known for the teaching of Buddha's Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. According to legend, he rescued these from Nagas, half-worldly spirits, gaining the name Nagarjuna, master of the Nagas. He also wrote many sutras himself, and founded the Madhyamaka, middle position, school of Buddhist philosophy. Key works. C. 200 Fundamental Verses of the Middle Way, the treatise on the Great Perfection of Wisdom. In context, key event, the development of Mahayana Buddhism. When and where, 2 and 3 RD centuries, India. Before. From 1500 BCE the Hindu Vedas refer to many gods and goddesses, each depicting an aspect of nature and life. From 2nd century BCE devotional practices become influential in Hinduism. After 7th century Mahayana Buddhism, using elaborate images and ritual, is established in Tibet. 8th century images of Buddhist teachers are used as a source of inspiration, as well as those of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. A popular image is that of Padmasambhava, the precious guru, who introduced Tantric Buddhism into Tibet. There has arisen in me the will to win all that knowledge, with all beings for its object, that is to say, for the purpose of setting free the entire world of beings. Siksha Samakaya. May I be an unending treasury for those desperate and forlorn. May I manifest as what they require and wish to have near them. Shantideva. If you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. The Dalai Lama.